Hello, hello, hello. My name is Kevin. This is Dirty 20 Gaming. And over there is the Scarred Adventurer. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yes, thank you for having me, as I will be on every episode of this, unless I'm
Yes.
sick.
Yes, you are a co-host. But thank you for being here nonetheless. Otherwise, I'm talking to nobody. So
Yes, and thank you for being here. Otherwise, I'm just sitting here going, how do I make any of this work?
it would be it would be challenging, yes. Anyway, we are here tonight to actually talk, to actually try and share what we've learned in all the streaming that we've been doing all along. So to that end, tonight, first session we did last week was session 0. It was a session 0. It was a session 1 for the show. It was a session 0 to show you a live session 0. I said that enough times now. But it was a live one where we went through all the safety features, the backstory creation, and strangely enough didn't touch on character sheets because that really doesn't matter to backstory creation. Character sheets to me is something completely different. But
unless you're building your character to reflect your character sheet?
Yeah, we did it the other way around last time, and it was new to some people. I noticed when I said let's make characters, both of the people that were with us reached for their mouse buttons to open their character sheets, which is what almost everybody I've ever played with does. But try something different. This week, to my mind, is something that should be done before that first week of play, somewhere between session 0 and session 1, which is the creating a character arc.
Yes, and I'm hoping I'm louder now. I moved my microphone closer to me.
Okay, if he isn't, let me know. I can fix even more. I have technical prowess. But
yes, he has technical prowess. I just have charismatic prowess.
Yes. Yes, better. Excellent. Good. Let us move on then. So, character arcs. Yes.
Before we start this episode,
yes, that's right. Hang on.
Properly start this episode, as always, with every episode, I would like to thank today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is deodorant. It's hot outside. Have you put some on?
So, in our first 2 weeks, we have been sponsored by a fictitious power drink and a fictitious deodorant.
No, we were sponsored by caffeine in general.
And well, yes, yeah. Well, yeah.
It's not a fictitious drink. It's just one that I refuse to show the label of.
We're being supported by Big Caffeine. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew it all along. Anyway, we should probably now.
I've been supported by Big Caffeine.
Oh, the only time I have bad days is when there's too much blood in my caffeine stream. Anyway, we should probably get to the show. We've knocked Karis over already and we haven't even started yet. Okay, character arcs. I did a video on these long ago, just off the top of my head. This time I actually decided to do some research, by which I mean I read the Wikipedia entry and the next 2 things on Google and then got bored and stopped. But I did do some research.
To 5 different sources and I skimmed all of them and I went, okay, this isn't helping.
5. Always outdoing me. Anyway, the last time I did this, I tried to go through and cover, I think I did 8 or 9 or 10 different particular arcs. And we're going to do that again this time, but we're going to do it sort of in a slightly more organized fashion. Because one of the things I discovered in my research, and when I explained it to Scarred, he went, yeah, I knew that. So I should have just talked to him instead. But there are 3 what we have decided to call schools of arc. And I personally don't like the names of 2 of them because I'm disagreeable and annoying. And I took philosophy and English in university, and I think words should mean what they say. But, yeah. You were going to say something?
No, I don't have
I'm hanging on. Okay.
I'm just kind of going, yeah, I mean...
Well,
they could be naming them a bit better.
Well, let's just name them. We complained about them. We should now talk about what we complained about. They are technically, as far as I can find out, called the ascent arc, the descent arc, and the flat arc. And the main reason I don't like that is because it only talks about the end of the curve. An ascent arc has to have, and they even talk about it in the text, and then they still use this name that isn't appropriate. It has to have a triggering event that causes the character to plummet to the bottom of the barrel, as it were, before bouncing back to recover to at least where they were, and sometimes even beyond. So calling it the ascent arc ignores the whole, like 2/3 of the story is ignored by that arc name.
I feel like what they're trying to say as well is just this is where your story ends. This
Yes.
is how your arc is supposed to be completed. So
Absolutely.
we're calling it the completion of the arc is called the ascent.
Yes. Yes.
The beginning of it is really more of a descent. It's a fall from grace
Mhm.
or a fall from a cliff in some cases.
With my math background, I would call them arc and negative arc because the first one is open and the other one is negative, is closed at the top. But you know, that you can't have math and English in the same sentence. What kind of world would that be? Anyway, that story arc is probably that happy ending arc is probably, I would argue, probably the most common one we see. It is it can be the really obvious one, right? Pretty much every action drama that's ever been made, every Bruce Willis movie ever, where they kill his family, drive him back to being a horrible human being, and yet at the end he somehow, by killing them, makes up for all of that.
Yeah.
That goes like that, right? There's also some way more subtle versions. You did one of them briefly, the Fall from Grace story, where your character has done something. Especially in D&D, it's easy because there's gods. So, what were you thinking when you put that story together? I know we haven't got to play it out, but what were you thinking when you put it together?
This is which story in
the
particular?
Oathbreaker Paladin in particular, that backstory. Yeah.
Yeah. Initially, it was actually supposed to be an ascension arc, which was the idea. It was supposed to be, I've done terrible things, and I need to find a way to atone and become a better person.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what happened, but we're not going to dwell on that for very long.
But that's the arc, right? Yeah.
That was the arc. It was supposed to be a redemptive story about, can the sins of my past be outweighed by the good I do in my future and my present?
Yeah, and then it was the double. I saw it as well as a double thing too, because, we will get to that. Believe me, chat. Yeah, how do you keep this thing going as the world gets chaotic around you? Yeah, we're going to talk about the 3 types first, and then we're going to absolutely please bring that one back because we're going to do questions at the end for sure. But yeah, in that particular instance, if I remember correctly, it was literally a loss of belief in the god, right?
It was kind of a loss of belief in the god, as well as loss of. It was less a loss of belief and more of a loss of trust.
Trust. Okay, yeah.
Because in Dungeons and Dragons is a universe where pretty much everyone loves and trusts the gods for some reason or other, and because they're so varied, you always have a god that you can cling to. Yes. I created a character that rejected the god's influence, having been lied to by one god, and just kind of seeing the very hypocrisy of what a god is, not accepting any of them, and trying to forge his own path.
Yes. So going from a life entirely based on belief and loyalty to that's all, none of it's real. So there's the crash. And then unfortunately, due to circumstances, we never got to see, we saw the hit bottom, but we never got to see the recovery.
We got to see him hit bottom.
Yes.
And then someone gave me a shovel.
Yes, they did, and we buried him way too early.
I had to give him other things in a side story I wrote on my own.
Yes. Well, speaking of which, because I didn't know this, but I was going to ask, in your head, in a couple sentences, where was that going? You started off at this paladin who doesn't believe. Where was the end of that upward arc?
The end of it would either, the fun thing with this was it was either going to be an upward arc or it was going to fall down, depending on how the story itself unfolded.
There you go.
It was going to be an ascent or a descent arc.
And you just answered the question in chat too, which is how do you when the world throws chaos, what do? You turn around and go the other way. If it's a descent arc, then there we go. Starting next week, this is a descent arc.
I planned for both.
Yeah.
Because technically, in this Dungeons and Dragons universe, especially, what one of the goals I was aiming for would have been essentially dissension,
Mm-hmm.
where he would have acquired godhood of some kind,
Yep.
and then gone off to fight gods on his own, where he just gets further and further down, because his high point was right at the beginning of his backstory, where he was a prince and a warrior and a general of his homeland.
Yes.
Then who then left all of it behind and then slowly descended into this god-hating person. Otherwise, it would have been a thing. In another situation, it would have turned into a kind of reinvigorating his belief in a god, kind of in a, I don't fully accept and understand what you're doing or the way you're doing it, but I see that you're trying to do it, and I am accepting that you can't control things very well either.
Sure.
So I'm willing to put my faith in you
Yep.
and help you achieve your vision.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm just going to quickly mention to chat. Yes, and yes. My personal take on that is the character arc you start with is extraordinarily unlikely to be the one that you finish. In my head, like Scard was mentioning, they are infinitely malleable. They can change shape, direction, reason, source. The curve can flatten and then reclimb. There can be a period of time where there's no development at all. All of those are possible, and it's infinitely flexible. And just like was said there, you play to learn about your character. So you build this character and you think you know them. You always do, right? And then you start to play them and you go, who the hell is this? I love them, but who the hell is this? And then you play them to find out. So that stuff that was on the paper before you started doesn't apply anymore. It's written on paper, not carved in stone. Change it, right? Yeah.
I, like for the character I'm playing now, Creature.
Yes.
I kind of started out with a sentence.
Yes.
And I went, I can fill the rest of this in later.
Yes. Well, thank you for bringing Creature up, because it actually takes me naturally to the next point. One throwaway line, then the next point. As dark and as tremendous as that story was that we just talked about, that redemption story arc that is absolutely an ascent arc. The other one is pretty much every animated Disney movie ever, which is the coming of age story. I will not take the throne. I will run away and get drunk with my friends. I'm sorry, this is for kids. I will run away and play in the forest with my friends. I have learned many things playing in the forest with my friends. And now I will go back and take yes, and now I will go back and take the kingdom, being better than I was ever before. Hello, checking it out. We are talking about character arcs tonight. You're almost in early. Well, you are in early. We're only 17 minutes in, and 5 of that was us talking about ourselves. So we're just talking about the first of the 3 sort of classes, or what did we decide to call them? Schools of character arc, and we're talking about the ascent arc, where it ends on a positive. It usually starts with a bad event, goes to a bad point, and then rises to a positive.
And it is lovely to meet you, Scott.
It is lovely to meet you, Scott. I don't generally use people's names in chat until they kind of give me permission by telling me like that, just in case they didn't expect to be mentioned. So it was not a slight. It wasn't. I just didn't want to say anything I shouldn't say.
No,
but
one of those, don't pull someone to the spotlight if they're not ready.
Exactly. Until they say, no, I'm here for the spotlight. And they say, come on in. It's big. It's plenty for all of us. But that was the throwaway line. Every Disney movie ever, every coming of age story is also an ascent arc. But you mentioned Creature, and I had mentioned earlier triggering event, low point, recovery. Character arcs do not need to coincide with the story, because Creature's triggering event happened when?
Oh, his triggering event happened 6 months before the story began, or on his death over 200 years prior.
Yes. Or before that, when he lost against the plague, I would argue. I would argue that that was the beginning of his descent. But that's, I've only seen him for a couple of weeks, so I don't know.
I need to now write that down. That was my plan. But, I was just going to have him. He died of old age, of a heartbreak of his old love that passed away.
He died of heartbreak because he couldn't stop the plague.
I like this one more. He died of the plague.
That's when he gave up.
Tried to stop.
Yep, and then he tried to. Yeah, he gave up and was punished hideously. But like I said, so the triggering event in that story is technically 280 something years ago. The bottom, is he there yet? Is he bounced?
No, if he's
Where is
reached
he?
the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've hit the bottom already, and he's just kind of flat at the moment.
So he's gone down, and now he's doing this. Yeah,
he's slowly getting up a bit, but it's less of a huge bounce. It's more just kind of, I've hit the bottom. Hitting the bottom was being brought back to life.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
With this weird parasite that the Night Raider gave him.
Yes.
Spoiler.
You've said the name enough times now. That's not a spoiler anymore. Go watch the show. There's only a couple episodes. You'll be caught up in no time.
No, I'm talking about the parasite bit.
Oh, yes.
Talked about the parasite yet.
Well, you keep calling yourself they.
I do call myself we.
We, yes.
No one's asked me about it yet. So
no. Well, when you got a party full of monsters, nobody says, "Why are you a monster?" Right? It's actually, as a quick aside, it's one of the really cool things that has happened on this channel. Is that no matter how messed up your character is when they walk on stage for the first time, everybody else just goes, "Hey," and proceeds on. And I'm so happy. This makes me so pleased. But yes, the character arc does not need to coincide with the story arc. I like that he's on the bottom, because the very first episode, you played it beautifully. The very first thing that happened, you're like, not my problem, climb on the roof and check this shit out. And then you gave yourself a reason to get involved a little tiny bit, which to my mind was like you looking up. You're not coming off the bottom of the barrel yet, but you're looking up. And then now we're going to see what happens. So,
who is this small person?
Oh, thank you, Scott. Thank you very much. Appreciate that very much. Yeah, who is this drunken bard?
Small person, and I must help this small person.
Oh, Iticus, yes. Yeah, if anybody ever needs to bond a party, introduce a 3-foot-tall warforged that has been essentially possessed by the world's cutest goblin, and call Sans to play it, and your party will come together like glue.
That, or get an actual 6-year-old come in and just go,
oh yeah, there's that option. Except you can't do everything else that we do in our games with a real 6-year-old in the room. Okay, so that's that. The other thing that we did point out, kind of touched on, even though it's an upward arc, that does not guarantee a happy ending. It can be really, really dark. It can be that moment where at the point of success, you realize what you had to do to get it, and realize that it wasn't worth the price, right? The empty wave from the throne ending to the movie. Right?
There's actually a good example from comics, and a great film based on the comic, Sin City.
Yes.
If anyone's read it. During that Yellow Bastard story, the character that gets played by Bruce Willis in the film realizes that to help protect everyone and save people for the last time, he has to be dead.
Yes.
To make sure that they don't go after these people to try and get at him anymore.
Yeah.
So it's an ascent arc. It's definitely an ascent arc. He starts at the top. He gets pushed down to the bottom. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
He bounces up and he starts helping out the girl that he saved the first time. And then to protect her, he ends his own life to make sure everyone stays safe. And like Kevin said, it's not a happy ending. Like for him, it might be a happy ending for him, but for everyone else, it sucks.
It's still an ascent arc from the protagonist's point of view, right? Yeah. That's the other thing. Arcs can look different from different perspectives, just like everything else, right? But one last thing I want to touch on before we move on to the next type, because I want to get to the questions and the comments. Speaking of which, keep pounding them out here. We'll get to them as we can. And Scott, thank you so much, twice. Clap and clap, one for each. Appreciate that very, very much.
Now, this is what my drama teacher called a seal of approval.
Which looks absolutely creepy with that green screen effect going. But we touched on it as well. The V shape doesn't have to be, and often isn't, symmetrical. You don't spend the same amount of time falling as you do recovering, right? Most of them are a near vertical plummet followed by a long, slow recovery, right? They look like a check mark. Right? But that depends on the length of the campaign too. I've had campaigns where you're told at the start, you guys too, you got 10 weeks. If you decide you're going to squeeze a whole character arc into 10 weeks, you got to go. So, you make stuff happen. But yes, it often isn't symmetrical. Just like every action movie ever. They kill the family in the first 5 minutes. The next hour and 25 minutes is them blowing up the city and running down the street. So, but as we said, the whole point to the ascending arc is that it is, in the end, exactly that. It is ascending. It finishes at the end, going in an upward point. They were at least back to where they started. The inverted version of that, the descent arc.
A lovely rise to power and then plummet.
It is, absolutely. This is definitely the second most popular type of arc, and one that when I saw this, I grinned because I thought, oh, good, I got scarred at the table. We got an expert in this particular field. Technically, it's the rise and fall story, right? It is it's starting from nothing. Arc. It is, absolutely. That's exactly where I was going with this. They start in a bad place before ascending to great power, usually through aligning themselves with dark powers or by embracing their own dark side, before crashing down because of betrayal or destruction of that power that they took in the first place.
And as was just pointed out in our chat, arcs aren't always positive or negative. Like our Ascent arc has, the one I mentioned with Sin City, has a negative end.
Mm-hmm.
But for a Descent arc, and I'm going to use another character I played as an example for this, his ending was really happy, even though he lost all of his powers. And that was the story of Richard.
Yes.
Is he ascended, he had this kind of, really it was more like a W shape.
Yes, yeah. It was two characters.
Or like an N.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, at least an N. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah. And because he started off in a bad place, and then he got worse. And he was saved by a worse situation. And he slowly gained more power and found things and started finding things like a reason to survive and a reason to be who he is. But at the end of it, he gave it all up and he let go of all of it. And essentially from there, it would have crashed down. Yes. And he decided, I want to open a bar because I'm better than you people.
Exactly. So we had this technically a descent arc, technically a story that finished on a downer because he lost all his powers and he was merely human again.
Yeah, that's kind of what he always
wanted all along. Right? He became an adventurer on a false belief, right?
Oh, he didn't even become an adventurer on a false belief. It was a sign here and I'll save your life. Okay.
Yeah. Tricked by the Fae is probably, I realized as I said it, tricked by the Fae is probably a better way of putting that. They were a warlock after all.
Sign here and we'll make you an English major, John Mulaney.
But yeah, just as I looked over, I said, this is the home of the warlock who cuts a deal with a demonic lord to gain the power to destroy their foes that threaten their family, only to discover that while they were off doing that, the demonic power in question was at home killing their family.
Or it's that story. Died to begin with.
Yep. The other one on these is the deal with the devil story. Where you again, we're back to that lovely character arc. It's almost by itself. It's almost a standalone arc. It's the question, what would I do to get what I want?
sorry, I have so many examples of a lot. I watch a lot of TV movies.
Yeah, jump in. That's what. That's
like
you know.
This is one of the reasons I'm here. So Supernatural, for those of you who've ever watched Supernatural, they make deals with like celestial beings all the time. And Dean, I think it's the first season, makes a deal with the devil to bring his brother back to life. And in exchange, he will go to hell in this amount of time.
Right.
And he goes to hell. Like, it happens. John Constantine is another example. You are correct.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Except John Constantine is constantly being the guy that I outsmart you. He got the devil to remove his lung cancer for nothing. Like, he made 3 deals with 3 different demon lords.
Yep.
And they all realized, we want his soul so badly, and we can't give it to one of you because it shows weakness on my part.
Yeah.
So they'd have to go to war for him. And they went, we have to make you immortal now. So, thanks.
Yeah. You very briefly, just be quick, you reminded me of one of my proudest gaming moments, to be fair, when Guy gave the scepter of his power, the scythe or whatever it was, to essentially Beelzebub. Said, yeah, that's it. That's the staff that controls my people. And then went to his people and said, that is no longer the staff that controls us. This is the staff that controls us, thereby getting the best part of the deal without ever having to pay anything back. So it was good fun. Well, apparently it was a crossover with the Green Arrow.
That I don't remember. I remember from the comics. I don't know everything. But DC and Marvel, huge holes of stuff I have to go into. I'm surprised I know as much as I do. What I know is like a teaspoon's amount of knowledge.
That's the key thing to know, is that you know next to nothing. But we were talking about, it's that question. What would I do to accomplish my goals? It's kind of that where you find out what your character's made of. Like Chat was mentioning earlier, I play them to find out who they are. So when you've got a DM or a GM that puts you in that place, here is a deep, meaningful decision for your character to make. You're ready, right? But that's the question. What would I do to accomplish my goals? I got like some examples here. Would I kill someone to keep somebody I loved alive? Would I then feel like I had to hunt down their friends and family to be sure they didn't hunt down mine?
There was actually a Dungeons & Dragons player I played with. I'm not going to name names or anything like that. Who always thought they could make deals with the big bad and then outsmart them.
Yes.
Even though, no, you can't.
But
yes, at times you can, but they're like you talk to the DM saying, this is how I'm going to outsmart them.
Yep. But then that's perfect, because that leads me to the inevitable question that follows that, is when your character is wrong and things go absolutely pear-shaped, and that final thing that they have to ask themselves, by the gods, what have I done? And that's usually that final moment of failure on that descent arc, right? That's and then a quick
even still, Lucas did end on a descent arc.
Oh yes,
for whatever his end amounted to. Really,
it's not done, man. I keep telling you, it's not done. We're gonna bring that.
I know
back.
We're gonna bring him back. I don't know how. I have this idea for one.
I do.
Which
I already got two ideas. I got two ideas and a plan already. So yeah.
But at the end of the thing, he made a deal with the King of Avernus.
Yep.
To be in hell for this set amount of time.
Yep.
And then he also then traded the lives of all the other alternate versions of him, which are an infinite number of him. But one of the things I don't think Asmodeus really thought of, because I know the DM playing him didn't think of it. Not all of them would be warriors.
No, you got a bunch of bread makers and farmers and ones that didn't get messed up as youths.
Yeah, like there are a few that were just like, no, I like to farm my chickens. Yep. You want me to run hell? Okay. and then
Yeah.
he'd lose.
Yeah.
I mean,
And yes, Scott, that is always a potential problem, is when you put failure in front of your characters, sometimes they don't respond particularly well. And and thank you, because that's a perfect lead into the next little point that I had here. The descent arc is inevitable and final. Like, there's other than the sort of like, I'm a human now, but that's what I really wanted. Other than those very rare moments, it is almost always ends in utter failure and death. But it's worse than that, because if it's done right, the other players, the GM and viewers, if you have them, are going to spend significant portions of the game hating that character because of what they're doing. Like, because you can see it. This is the Walter White in Breaking Bad, right? You're watching the rise to power, going, oh no, this isn't going to end well, and then of course it doesn't. But it's that, it is absolutely, it's inevitable. You can see it coming.
Like almost every mafia story ends like that.
Exactly, yeah. The clenching onto power leads to the complete loss of it. It's, one of the great storylines. But yeah, you do have to be prepared for the fact that the exact opposite of Dear Sweet Iticus would be somebody who is so on that arc, and is so obviously on that arc that they become unlikable. If at best they're pathetic. Right? I mean, so
I've seen some players.
Yeah.
No, and I'm not saying from where I've seen these players, because I've been around.
Yeah.
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 I've seen some players do things that are essentially deals with the devil constantly, and they think like nothing's going to come of it. And I've just been like, and I've watched like everyone else is on board with this person. I'm just thinking, you moron. And then they slowly make me very angry, and my character angry, and I just and I try to explain it, and then they go, "No, it's not gonna be fine."
Oh, I had the creature for 3 weeks. Yeah, that's when something they hate and if they won't let go of it and it's part of the campaign, you've got an issue. Absolutely. That's going to be a future episode of this. Is I hesitate to call it troublesome players, but I think I would call it something like approaching players. I think rather than talk about them, I'll talk about how to talk to them. But anyway, that's a different show.
To deal with a character that is giving you an issue.
Yes, and also, chat, absolutely 100% campaign planning is an arc. It is the big bad's arc. That is the whole plot, is the big bad story. So yes, they have an arc in mind, and it gets affected just like everybody else's do. But yes, it works from both sides of the table.
Yeah.
The final kind of arc, before we open up to questions. It's weird because I said I didn't like the name of two of them. When I think about it, I don't like the name of this one either, because there's no such thing as a flat arc. An arc is a curve, but never mind.
Yeah. But I think I would refer to it more as the static arc.
Mm-hmm.
The arc that simply
doesn't
go.
Yes. And there is an essential feature with this arc. And that is, if you're going to play a character that doesn't change, you have to work with the GM. And the game that they're in has to be in a rapidly changing world, so that the character's refusal to change stands out against the world that is inevitably changing in front of them. If you don't do that... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. You finish your point first. This is
character all I was going to say is
that's like that.
If you don't do that, and you just have a character that just never changes no matter what, that's not a character arc. That's going nowhere. That's a character that is not developing. They're not getting better or worse. They haven't made any decisions. That's not what the flat arc is. The flat arc is the
refusal to change in the face of adversity, almost.
Yes, and in a lot of cases, that's exactly it. It's about it's not about not changing; it's about refusing to change. That's the important thing. As such, as it says, in the literature, such as Wikipedia is, they can be boring and flat. And that's that one that doesn't change no matter what. There's no reason why they're not changing. They just don't. But there are other fictional characters that are considered a flat arc. And when you think about it, yeah, they are. Sherlock Holmes is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
In this rapidly changing, industrializing world, this person who uses their mind and logic and systems to grind to an answer stood out against the background. Everybody else was kind of thick and didn't think like this and were willing to take easy answers, and he isn't. Another one, as they put it, most versions of James Bond. I mean, he's a dinosaur. If he isn't so unbelievably charismatic as a character, you'd hate them because they represent everything of old, the borderline bigoted, all that stuff, the typical British gentleman.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's this lovely joke about James Bond, which is just M looks at James Bond, phones James Bond on watch and says, "Bond, now I need you to keep a low profile." Bond, who's already balls deep in the villain's wife. What was that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yes, the relic of the Cold War. Yes, it's exactly right. They are these characters, and that's the only time they work in a rapidly changing world, to have this dinosaur of sorry, Scott. It's also my apologies, 100%. It was not attempted as a poke. It was attempted as a bit of funny. But yeah, that's the only, in my mind, that is the only time that character works. And you have to work with your GM on that. That has to be the one world is coming to an end and another beckons, right?
Yeah, I've seen characters that have done flat arcs and they've done it poorly.
Yep.
Piss poor.
Yeah, just not changing is not the same, right? That's not an arc at all. Yeah.
No. It's they refuse to change and they refuse to do anything that they believe is not a part of their character.
Yeah.
When you should do things that aren't always part of your character, because sometimes you have to
explore them. Put them in weird situations and see what they do. They don't always make good decisions. Yes.
Yeah, now I played a flat arc character that people will remember as Frankie.
Yep.
Because let's be honest.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely changed. A flat arc. No, absolutely not. He was chaos incarnate and never changed. You're absolutely right.
Like, he changed the world. The world didn't change him.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. He's a great example of an extreme flat arc character, because at the end, completely unchanged. He looked around, saw his job was done, and literally buried into the earth until he was needed to shake the shit out of things again. Right? That's a flat arc before the story exists. It's a flat arc through the story, and it's a flat arc after the story. There's this godling traveling through space and time, making sure that nothing ever gets too normal. And yeah, perfect example of a flat character.
Yeah, and I feel like it was a flat character that actually turned out okay.
Yeah,
people liked Frankie.
Yes,
I think. I really hope so.
I loved Frankie, but there's also a thing that you answered with Frankie. You showed how to do this. It's kind of hard to tell when you're done playing a flat arc character because you never change. The story just kind of finishes, and you're just kind of okay. I guess I roll up a new character for next week, because you can't look back and go, oh, look, I did that, or even I did this. You just went like that. So it can be kind of hard to tell when you're done, but you answered that. You looked around, chaos reigns supreme. I'm done here. I can go now.
I'm kind of tired. I'm sleepy. Let's make another weird killer murder planet.
Exactly. Yeah, starting the process to leading to a second world like the one you were born on. But on a less extreme levels, a couple examples I put here, like a
Sherlock
60s...
Holmes would have just retired, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Made enough money in the first 3 cases from the ones he did for like famous rich people and just gone out in the country and figured out what foxes did when nobody was looking or something ridiculous like that. Yeah. An NPC that lasted 2 years. I have got NPCs like the Scottish blacksmith, who is in every town they ever go to, no matter what game we're playing, is always a huge red-headed, red-bearded Scottish. They're cloned and they're everywhere. So
I was thinking it's like a Nurse Joy situation for Pokemon, where they're all just related, but they're all identical.
Well, in this one, they all, in my joke, hello, Raid, hello,
Hi.
Miyu and your Raid. Thank you so much for joining. You got here just in time for questions. Basically, because the 60s hippie and transported back to Victorian England, that's a static character. It's the they did the opposite of that with Austin Powers, right? Bring the 60s moron up into the modern world. He refuses to change. The world is completely different around him. It's kind of a one gag that lasts 90 minutes. But
it's a fun gag.
It is. The other one is the other way, taking the Victorian gentleman and dropping him in Woodstock for the weekend, which I think would be a hysterical one-shot. A bunch of Victorian gentle persons dropped into naked, mud-covered, acid-filled Woodstock.
So for what I'm about to do, I apologize, Scott, and to everyone else who's in the UK. I say, Gerald, this seems like quite the predicament we are in.
and do you see elephants? I see elephants. Oh, they're there. Okay. But the goblins aren't? No, you don't see goblins? Oh, shit. Anyway,
I can't see a good place to sit down for tea anywhere.
So there, actually, we just came, that's a very, we just kind of jammed to a good idea there. A flat arc character works perfectly well in a one-shot. Especially ours. Like, you got 90 minutes to 2 hours. There's not time for a story. You're going to just develop as a person. I'm going to develop as a goblin. I will be a better goblin at the end of 3 Goblins in a Trench Coat than when I started. Impossible. Absolutely. And now I've set it as a personal challenge.
Things, but that's not really an art.
I've now set it as a personal challenge. Yes, Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. Yeah. How good is his brain in that world? I love it. Which Friday? Speaking of which, anybody who's watching who was also in the Discord, he said typing the Discord in.
And I say things that
yeah, we're done. In there, I just posted July's list of the fun shots for the 2 weeks. We're doing Force Patrollers again because I love that game.
It's so much fun.
And then to make up for the pointless violence in that one, we're going to do Kobold Endeavors, which is very, very cute. So, but back to this. That's basically all I wanted to say on the 3 of them. Did you took notes? What do you want to add?
That's pretty much my notes were. I said while we were talking about it.
Oh, good.
Like I weaved them in.
Excellent. The weaving was
like talking about the corruption arc, the redemption arc, stuff like that. Because there are lots of different arcs, and the static arc is one of them that I learned, and I looked. Flat arc, static arc, they're the same thing.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I agree with that completely. So, I guess it's time for the questions. To start with the really obvious one. Why have one? Why have a character arc at all? We'll get to isn't it artificial in a second, but why would you go into a game with a plan? Isn't it metagaming? Descent into Madness arc? Yeah, that is absolutely, yeah. And then the nice thing with that one is you get to choose at the bottom whether they continue to descend or whether it turns into an ascent arc and they recover.
So for the why have a character arc discussion on itself is just, I think one of the really, and is it metagaming? I think having a pre-established this is where I want my character to go concept in itself isn't metagaming. However, you should be prepared just in case.
Yeah.
That the arc that you're planning doesn't work out. Maybe plan another one if you're really into planning things. And if you don't want to plan them, just roll with it.
Yeah.
But generally, even before you start, you have already set up an arc of some kind because of your backstory.
Yes. That's exactly what happened with Guy. And again, I'm glad you brought this up. I made this character based on a sentence. The initial version of the character based on the sentence, a warlock that should have been a bard. So there was no intent to have a character arc. He was just going to be this goof and see what happened. But the second that I entered the backstory that he'd run away when he'd become an age to become the official prince and refused to take the job, it's obvious that this is a coming of age story.
Yeah.
And I played it, and then the split second that he found out that Guillaume had killed his father, I was like, oh, there's the resolution. He has to take the responsibility. He couldn't do it in this world because he didn't kill his own dad, but Guillaume did, so he got to resolve the issue there. So,
I mean, Richard was a search for purpose kind of character.
Yes.
And then when he was brought back, I didn't really want him to be brought back for several reasons. It was funny.
Yeah.
And that's because he accomplished his story. I didn't need to think very hard about him. I just kicked around.
Yeah. And yes, chat one, it helps you ground your character. Yes, I love having a character arc because having said it a number of times tonight, I'm going to say it again. They can and do change constantly. Anybody who knows the amount I like to improv knows that my character arcs don't last through a session, that they've changed by the end of them. But yes, it helps you to ground your character when you're making them. It is, in my opinion, it is metagaming, but not all metagaming is bad. Planning a character, you're trying to make a story. You're trying to tell a good story.
Especially if you have viewers.
Yes.
We do.
Yes. Things have to move along. Yeah, you can't have zero happen for 4 hours, right? You have to move it along. So always...
Like there's... Yeah. In terms of metagaming, I think there's always a... I think there's always a reason that there's... You don't want metagaming, but you also want it in a sense.
Yes.
It's the degree of metagaming.
Yes.
Because there are things, especially if you're Dungeon Master, someone that likes to go very theatrical and say, this is what's happening with the bad guys right now. Even though you're not there and you can't affect anything. This is the kind of like the end of the scene thing that we hear about.
The cutscene,
The cutscene.
Yes.
At that point, that's metagaming still. But you have to really just you need, as a role player, this is something that is very, especially if you want to be a really good role player, you need to get comfortable with understanding this is what my character knows and this is what I know.
Yes. Yep. And I've just came up with
ask questions about what they know all the time.
Yes.
With Creature, I ask, was this around 200 years ago? Would I know it?
Yep. And the answer in most cases would be no. These towns, or if they did, it was a village the last time you were here, and now it's a city. Or it used to be a city, and now it's ruins.
It's been around for quite a while.
Yeah. But to get back to chat, yes, Bickford is, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is an interesting arc in that there isn't one. Bickford was created so quickly and so... I don't want to say to serve a purpose, but it was again one of those one sentence inspirations. But we threw Bickford into the game with no direction, and it's Bickford
is one of he's the bugbear rogue, so 7'6" of sneaky. In the Sunday games.
Yes, and the short version of his backstory is he was part of the party, the bad guy party that raided the original city that the party was in, and seeing the tide turning, switched sides, and so far hasn't been caught. And now is traveling with several other monsters, and they're going to be the ones that fix the Storm King's thunder problem in a new and unique way, because I broke it in a new and unique way.
Because always it's one of those. And whenever you have a monster party or a monster story, there's always a point in the story, regardless of what you're doing. Even if you're really good, you're going to get to this point eventually. Who's the real monster here?
Oh, yes. And I made that real obvious in this one because you guys are being actively hunted, and that's all I'll say without spoiling anything for anybody who hasn't seen them. But yes. So do you have to have one in mind? No, you don't have to. But why do you want to? Lots of reasons. Is it metagaming to plan ahead? Yes, but only if, my argument would be only if you carve it in stone and say, no, this, I'm building everything that's going to, no matter what happens, this is how it's going to end.
I guess you could say in the same way, in the same way that you in your own life say, well, I'm going to be a teacher.
Yes.
That's not, if someone was role-playing you saying that's kind of metagaming, but at the same time, like, it's one of those, you know what you're building towards and you know what you're doing.
Yes. It tells a good story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's narrative reasons. Which, talking about telling a good story, next point, how much of your character arc do you tell your GM?
I think that depends on your GM.
It also, in my mind, really depends on your character arc, especially if you want to do that flat arc. Right, you have to it has to be a dynamic world for you to stand out. But even the other two,
I didn't. Even though I did the flat arc, Frankie, I didn't talk to you very much about.
No,
like we just kind of went, we'll do this. I throw chaos at you, and you roll with it.
Well, this is what happens. This is kind of the same thing that happened with Bigford when you've got improvers and people that are just sort of quick and go with everything that they're given. You quite often end with very blank backstories and very sort of undirected characters. But they play out realistically because that's how lots of people start adventuring. Very few people get up in the morning and say, I am sad and depressed being a baker. I shall adventure, and put a pot on their head and grab a wooden spoon and go off to war. Right? That's not usually how it works. They're broken. They're weird. There's something driving them to do this.
I mean, this is still on character arcs themselves as well. So this is for a story I'm writing. Thank you again, Scott. This is for a story I'm writing called The Shattered Tomorrow, and I'm rewriting it again because I'm doing that because I'm crazy.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's never done.
I'm putting even more descriptive stuff into it than the first time, but I'm keeping a character.
They're never done. Eventually, they're published, but they're never done.
Like eventually, I've put in a character, and his name is Graves, and he is a mortician. Like, Graves is his nickname, but everyone calls him Graves, so that's it. His real name is Robert Solomon, Rob Solemnly.
I love it.
But because you mentioned the baker, it just made me think of this. His character arc is kind of coming to grips of what he is and who he is and what he's good at. Because at the moment, he is a mortician that wants to be a baker.
Yep.
And he's a mortician in this town, but that hasn't stopped his dreams.
Yes.
So he makes pastries in the same building. He cuts up corpses.
Yes. And that's another version.
No one buys them.
Of course, But he doesn't stop, and that's the point, right? Oh, Scott, you're absolutely amazing. I'm glad so much that you are enjoying this. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm still not caught up, but thank you some more. But just before that second to last one, there was a sentence there too. We do a lot of, for anybody that doesn't know that's watching, we do a lot of 10 episode seasons on this channel. So you've got 8 to 10 episodes if you're going to do a story arc, to get it done. And one of the people that really, really did that well is in chat tonight. They did 8 Balls. An entire story arc was planned out before they ever knew the campaign they were going to be in, and then made it fit in 10 weeks by constant communication back and forth with me running the game. Similar things with Scarred here as well. But yes, don't be afraid to get your GM involved.
Mine was always, is it okay I'm doing this? Like, I'm not stepping on toes?
Yep. Yes, and if you're very lucky, you have a GM that says yes to everything they possibly can.
it's for me, it was the players I had to worry about.
Yep.
And I'm not even saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying I needed to make sure that I wasn't overstepping my abilities and overshadowing or anything like that.
When you play a completely chaotic character, that is always a potential problem, and that's another show we can do. We got an endless series of these that we can do. How to play what I almost called Yeah, how to play the obnoxious bard and not steal all the light. How to not steal all the thunder.
Yeah. I got lucky with improv. I was taught your job is to make the spotlight on everyone else.
Yes, push it
and
away.
Their
push it
job
away.
is to put the spotlight on everyone else as well. So
if everybody's
eventually
pushing,
everyone gets the spotlight.
Yes, if everybody's pushing the spotlight, that's the way to share it safely. I agree with that completely. Badagi, don't get me started. I learned so much about myself playing Guy that it is frightening. Anyway, we touched on it tonight. Variations on a theme. Technically, there's these three schools, right? The ascent, the descent, and the flat or static. But the variation, we touched at least 5 or 6 on each of those. There's a nearly endless string. It's like the old saw that there's only 6 plots. Maybe. But I'm creative enough to grab one of them that's been done 7,422,627,000 times and look you in the eyes and tell you ain't never seen it like this. Or maybe you have, but I don't care anyway. We're going to do it we're going to commit to it so deeply that it's going to work even though you've seen the Three Pigs story 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah. I'm writing way too much stuff.
God, man. You're amazing, dude.
No, thank you so much. I'm writing a weird make fun of things play.
I spend all day every day
he comes
doing
in
that,
and he's the wolf walks into the house and he's allergic to hay.
Yep.
He sneezes. That's been done before. But then the second house, a spark goes from the fireplace, in a stick house, by the way, onto the carpet. He tries to blow it out. The entire house catches on fire, and stuff like that. Just because it's not original doesn't mean you can't do it fun.
Yeah. And I went a completely different way. As you were saying that, I was looking at it from an archaeologist 5,000 years in the future's point of view. First, they dig up the remains of the straw house, try and make sense of that. Then they dig up the remains of the wood. Anyway, it's a murder mystery, 5,000 years in the making.
Yeah.
Look at that, I just did the title page. Anyway.
3 pigs. All having
3 roasted pigs inside. Because it burned down after they killed the wolf in the chimney. I don't know. Anyway, we touched on this next one too. We're not going to go anywhere near 2 hours tonight. We're just over the hour, and I'm already in the wrapping up phase. But that's fine.
I'm not. I can keep talking because I'm
okay.
Crazy.
Well, I'm going to keep talking till chat stops. But I'm about to run out of stuff on paper. We talked about this earlier. It is a character arc. To me, is a narrative device. If it's helping to tell the story, then it's working, and if it isn't, then change it. And make it work with the story.
So there was one question that I saw in chat.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions was, I need to scroll back up. How do you encourage growth of a character arc as a GM?
Yes.
Or a game master, a narrator?
Good question.
However you want to be called. And this is by Mudkip. I'm putting you in the spotlight, sorry. But to give the opportunities for players to choose without having to ask them directly about them.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Go.
This is just my opinion, but in one of the ways that I would do this is I would talk about I would just kind of start even at the beginning, just kind of where do you want your story to go?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then from there you can decide what kind of arc it is, and they might change their mind later.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's just kind of a lot of for me, I'm a kind of narrator, game master.
Yeah.
I like the term story editor.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
Because all the players are authors. I'm just cutting some of the fat and giving you a frame of reference.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of if I can, I want to build the world around the players.
Yes.
And I will make a story about you guys as opposed to making you guys make a story that fits to my thing. I might have a starter thing. The first D&D session I GM'd at this point, but was everyone starts off in jail and you're starting at level 1.
Yep.
So I'd like you to make these characters. I do have very small restrictions for them, which is please don't have them like I've murdered 12,000 people. No, you didn't. You're level 1.
Yes. Yeah.
And also, why are you in prison?
Yes. What did you do? And
And are you guilty?
Yes. The essential question: are you guilty, Scott? You are either amazing or the button stuck on your keyboard. Either way, I appreciate it. That is a tremendous amount of bits that you have donated tonight. I'm running out of thank yous, but it's amazing. Thank you so much.
If the button is stuck, then
talk to
I don't
Twitch.
think we can reimburse
you. Talk to Twitch. Again, wow.
Thank you.
But yeah, to me, the key thing with the character arc is it's a tool to help you flesh out your character, right? The other thing I have actually used the character arc for is when your character is stuck on the horns of a dilemma, when they literally have two equal choices to make, I will metagame like a madman and go, which one tells a better story? And then from there, that's where I'll make that decision. And it's worked really well for me. But let's hear from chat. I know at least one person. It's not stuck. I know.
I know.
How about some questions from chat? Comments too? Questions sound so arrogant, like we have all the answers.
And if you have a question that you've already asked, please type it in again.
If we missed it,
there's
yes,
so
please.
Many.
Yes.
I can't scroll through everything.
Our chat is usually fast, but not this fast.
I don't want to.
Yeah. Try to pay attention to the present and the past at the same time.
Yeah.
But I guess the big thing for me with character arcs is, like everything else, if it works, then do it. And if it doesn't work for you, then don't. The other thing is it's situational too. If you're going into just a straight up short run dungeon crawl, like it's, I don't know, for example, 8 to 10 weeks, and it's just going to be fight, puzzle, trap, fight, puzzle, trap, fight, puzzle, trap, fight. You don't have to have much of a backstory for that, because other than sitting around the campfire in these recently destroyed rooms, trying to get long rests in, there's not going to be...
Here? Some portal from the sky shot me into here.
Well, that's exactly the thing. The why, and especially in that particular campaign, the question "Why are you here?" is not a viable question, because they were all sucked through time and space without their knowledge. Do I use music to enhance the gameplay?
Yeah. I do want to say one thing.
Yes.
If we have questions for you guys, we might give a question to you guys at the end of the thing.
Yeah.
Please give us the answer in our Discord.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's where we can see it the best.
Yes, and then we can have a whole conversation about it there too, right?
Yeah. And some of us are there frequently, and some of us only really show up when they feel like they have something worthwhile saying.
And then some of me lives there.
But do we use music to enhance games?
Yeah. I'm a weird one. I usually don't, other than combat music. And we don't do we're doing more now. But other than that, I used to use some, not so much music, but ambience sounds, like village sounds and stuff like that. But I forget to turn it off, and now I've got village sounds in the castle. I personally don't, but it is probably considered the norm right now in streams anyway.
It kind of is. Yeah. I haven't been GMing long enough to really find a rhythm about whether or not I'm using music. I'm not so far, but that's because it's one of those, I wanted to make things open-ended enough that you suddenly say, I don't want to go to school anymore. I want to go to the bar. Okay. I don't have a bar soundtrack, so click. Yes. Bar sounds.
It is a whole level of things to add, especially if you're going to do ambience instead of music. It is a whole thing to add to your list of things to do as a GM. And the list of things to do as a GM, I want to be one thing, focus on the players so we can have some fun. So typically I don't use it.
If you have a restrictive setting, like what Kevin does on Saturdays with the dungeon crawl, it's something I might more if me as a GM, I'm not trying to say Kevin is anything but a fantastic GM, but no but there either. It's just if I were to be doing it, I might think about some kind of dungeon noises.
Yes,
at most, which would just be kind of like maybe a wind blowing through every now and then, or
little dripping
kind of
water
door. Yeah, little things like that. But it's because I know it's a restrictive setting. And unless you go, I want to leave, then I'll go, okay, your character leaves. We need a new character for this.
Yep. And the VTTs that we use here both have it very simple and easy to do to import music and whatnot. The other issue with that, of course, is we stream. So anything that we do bring in has to be copyright free. So that limits us quite a bit. Choosing music is hard and remembering to recognize when to change it. Yes, but it does. It also can get players right into the zone. You did hit on it though, Scarred. One way to do it is have a generic background, sort of if you're playing D&D, generic medieval music, and just have that play all the time that there's no combat, rather than trying to do ambience and try and match frame for frame or scene for scene.
For music, that was fantastically done, and I think I will, if I do another GMing thing, especially if I have the chance to really get into it.
Yes,
because I got really into the one that I did, and then I got sick and a bunch of other stuff, and I don't really need to go into that. It's just it feels kind of dead at the moment. Yeah. Like if my players want to keep doing it, I will do it, but I haven't heard anything from them. So
and that's a lot of that's on me too. I didn't give you the next slot, but never mind.
So for the Corsairs of the Cosmos,
yes,
for like important NPCs, they had theme songs.
Yeah, they did. That was an experiment. I was going to get to that. That was an experiment that I did, and it was so much fun. And now that to be fair, I'm looking down at this stream deck in front of me going, oh, look, because I can stack multi-actions on that. And so, yes, it was something I experimented with. So when an NPC made an entrance, I didn't say anything. After I explained it the first time, I didn't have to say anything. I would just hit their theme music and everybody would go like, oh, the Queen is here, or oh, Rebel's here. And then some of them had two musics. But yes, every major NPC in the game had theme music, and it was a blast. But I need and now have a more efficient way to do it. So yeah,
I think I have to ask Kevin next time, or even if I can for Sunday, if I really get on the ball, if I can suddenly give Creature a theme song, it'll just be dark and creepy, dark and creepy, dark and creepy, something like that.
You can absolutely sing your theme song in character as much as you like. Yes, if you plan on recording for personal use, then you do not have to worry about copyright. Use whatever you want. I've built entire campaigns around music that I will never ever be able to stream because it would cost me a fortune to get the rights.
Yeah, that's why I just always go classical.
Yep.
Why are we playing Mozart again?
Because it's free. So what
I'm
else?
also pretty sure that's why we mostly learn classical music in schools, because it's free.
It's free, yeah. They can teach it to us without having to pay the rights. But yes, Corsairs was a riot. That's a game I don't mind talking about for character arcs because everybody in that game accomplished them in 8 weeks. I think it was only an 8-week session. It worked out. It was planned to be 10, but you guys were moving. I think it was 8 or 9.
It's a tank, and by the way, it's a tankard that you get to put in the freezer, so the liquid freeze comes. Yeah. It's a very nice cup.
Wait, hang on a second. Oh shit! There was some water left in that. Let me edit that. No water pours. I am sitting in a puddle of water now. Oh, it's a tumbler. Yeah, it tumbled right in my lap. Hello. The quiet man has been all of a sudden bursts out. Hello in chat to everybody that was here tonight. This is really cool. This is good numbers. It makes me think we're doing something right here.
Yeah.
Keep it coming. Rip my shorts. Wait a minute. That didn't sound right. Other questions?
I took off my shorts recently.
About character arc, yeah.
All through.
Yeah.
It is bad.
Oh, man. I feel like that radio show at 2:30 in the morning, finally, when you're the only people in the city that are awake. Except they aren't. There's a whole bunch of them. Get rid of your bunch of those. Yeah. You get to a certain size, and all of a sudden, a certain amount of your clothes just likes to suddenly explode. I understand.
Yeah.
Not really a topic I thought we'd cover tonight, but
no, I'm getting to a point where I've gone. I don't know how much I weigh. It's like somewhere near 300 pounds. I'm 6'6" though, so that's
Yep.
It's not obese, but it's not good.
Either way.
Yeah, that's my goal this summer, to drop 50 pounds.
Yeah, just go outside in this heat. For those of you that aren't here, NPC arcs. Good point. Because I very briefly touched on earlier, the whole plot is an NPC arc. It's the
Especially
big bad's arc. Yeah, it's your villain's arc. That's what the plot is. Especially if you use that magic sentence that Guy Scanlon uses over on How to Be a Great GM, which is an exceptional channel if you want to learn how to GM. Somebody wants something by a specific time and is having trouble getting it because. And the somebody is the big bad, is the villain. So the villain wants something by a certain time. That way there's a time pressure in the plot built in. And is having trouble getting it because, and only one of the reasons of the becauses is the party. Or the party sponsor, or, the whatever it is.
I'm just nodding in agreement with the most recent comment.
Yes, yeah. But yes, the more if you take 10 seconds and write an arc for all the major NPCs in the game, it will help you play them because it will give you their motivation.
And you'll know who they are. Which
yes,
is part of the
exactly. Yeah, what are they trying to accomplish? And that's one of those. It's another good question for another good reason. For characters, holy crap! Thank you so much. Some more, Scott. You're going to town. This is amazing. But yeah, I think you made me forget what I was going to say.
Another good question.
NPC arcs. No, don't be sorry.
No, don't be. And besides, sorry is a Canadian thing. Don't steal our things.
NPC arcs and bad guy arcs, and all your NPCs have arcs, and it lets you know what they want. Oh, I know where it was. Thank you. I reconstructed it. Most PCs do not know the story arc they're on. I'll let that sink in for a second. Simba didn't know they were on a coming-of-age story arc. Right? It never occurred to them, because they didn't know they were a fictional character, to say, what story arc am I on? So your character doesn't know, but you do. There is some situations where that's different. And for NPCs, it's a great way to fake a whole thing, how to get a motivation for your NPC. Give them a story arc and make them aware of it. My long-term goal is to get enough money to go to the city and become rich as a bard. That's a character arc, but it's also everything you need to know about them. What will they do to accomplish that goal? Right? So that's all you've got to figure out then. So yes, thank you very, very much for that idea. The NPC arc absolutely gives you gets your NPC a direction, but it also brings up the point that most of the time your character has no idea what arc they're on, unless they've chosen it specifically, which is really rare. But that's that metagaming coming in again.
Yeah. And once again, metagaming, it's a blessing and a curse.
It's not always bad. The one of my favorite arguments against never metagame is telling your party they're following a red herring. Playing really serious never metagame, you shouldn't. You should improv the whole bloody wild goose chase and then let them figure it out and bring them all the way back to the plot. But another show we're going to do is the difference between a good game and a good streamed game. And that does not work in a streamed game. You're not going to have 6 weeks of them wandering off on a wild goose chase. Nobody would ever tune in when you said it's all a dream at the end of it.
Yeah, people would get pissed. Sorry, it's the when you have an NPC who you develop and who has a major input to the game.
Yeah, they really can. This was something that was covered last night in a show I watched. You really have to watch that as a GM. If you're going to give them a very powerful character, an NPC, make sure they don't take over. You can give them a level bazillion fighter, as soon as a fight starts, I'm stealing this absolutely from last night, which is called Middle-Aged Dices. I'm trying to remember the name of the show, Midlife Dices. Midlife Dices. That's what it is.
Such a great name.
But yes, had a great idea. Give them an nth level fighter, but as soon as they go into combat, that nth level fighter spends the entire fight over in the corner wrestling with 3 goblins to no real effect. They are not involved in the real fight. They never affect the outcome.
No.
The other thing you don't want to do with an NPC is make them your mouthpiece, because then your throwaway sentence leads them on a wild goose chase. So you got to be very careful with that too.
Yes. And you are right. If you've put them in the game and they're not there for a little while, and your players go, they're not here today.
Yes. Yeah. Don't let your players get used to the help. Yes. Yeah. The Hill Giant, exactly precisely in the world at large, which is Storm King's Thunder. Harshnag there are instructions in the book on how to keep Harshnag from taking over in combat. It's very specific. But when they're not in the game for a time, it makes the players miss them. Yes. If your characters are looking for an NPC, you did something right, bring them back. Make them more important than they were.
Sometimes there are NPCs that you decide that you think are going to be important NPCs, and they don't end up being.
They walk right past them. Yeah.
And then there are times, really, if you want to know, how do I make my NPC an important NPC? Give them a funny voice and a weird name.
Yeah, make them silly, make them pathetic. They'll get adopted every bloody time, and then you'll have to on the fly figure out why they're important.
Like, why is Boblin the Goblin important? Because it sounds like this.
Usually take player story arcs and break them up like bread pieces, reminding them that I remember and offering choices to do other things from the main story. Yes. Yeah, it's never the story. It's that sort of thing that hovers above the story. Don't let it take over. You've still got a plot. You've still got reasons to be there. You've still got a big bad to beat. But you've got this overarching story arc that your character is going to resolve separate from the story. Probably with stuff they learned from in the story.
Yeah, unless your story is all about them getting their character arc. And then that's a different kind of game, though, as well.
Yes, that's another way to do it. Chat, yeah, they're pacifist. And I like that idea, especially because nobody ever wants to play a cleric. So you give them a cleric, but they won't fight, which is good because most cleric classes are silly overpowered in a fight. So.
Yes.
Make them comfy and then take it away. Yeah, that's the secret to making them care. Why did I think it was a good idea to give my players a freaking kraken? Yes, Puffin Forest has absolutely nailed that. You get carried away sometimes as a GM. It doesn't even have to be a kraken. It can be a magical item that's two steps ahead of where they should be. A +3 sword at level 3 can absolutely cause mayhem because it unbalances the party and makes one of them more important than the others.
Sorry, I don't mean to make fun of spelling at this point. It's just I see a good story will write itself. You remove the R from that word, it becomes white, and it's a Dungeons and Dragons monster. Sorry, I'm sorry. I see it. It makes me laugh a little bit. I got confused for a moment. It was just right. Sorry, keep it interesting. Then, like a good story, it will white appear and attack your party.
But you're correct. It will write itself. Yes, I am a firm believer in under prepping. I want a vague skeleton of a story at the start of every session, unless there's a lot of technical stuff in it. There's always exceptions. But for the most part, I want to improv it because where we're going is always a story. So.
I think I make my first episode to a point where I know what everything's going to happen, and I know what paths they can take and what paths they will take. Yeah. The first time I DM'd, I over prepped, which worked out well for me.
Tune in 2 weeks for Getting Started as a GM, where we talk all about overprepping.
We're going to talk about that as well. But, I'm going to mention it again then as well. But it was just I wrote about 3 pages of stuff that I knew would take them about 2 hours.
Yep.
Like I made enough skeletons for different options.
Yes.
Like they were leaving the prison, and they can either go and accomplish this task they've been sent off to and gain their freedom that way. And then there are several different ways they can do that. Or, of course, they can say no and then get put back to prison and have to find a way to break out of prison.
Yep.
Or they can agree to it, and then while they're on the trip down from the Sky Prison, they attack their jailer and escape.
Make a run
so
for
I had
it.
to prep for that as well. It was just I wanted enough that I knew this might happen.
Yep.
And then what to do in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Especially considering I don't often use the actual Dungeons and Dragons maps.
Yes. Yeah.
I just
especially if you're doing theater of the mind. Yeah. Especially if you're doing theater of the mind, that the less is more for prep. I have found the more I do it, the less I prep. Except Cathedral Deep is a completely perfect example of the opposite thing. But that makes sense because I based it on the 1980s modules, which were all about this hyper detail and hyper prep. And it is the ultimate railroad. There is literally only one way they can go. So in that instance, you can program every step when there's only one way to go. But that was kind of the whole point to that. And level 5s technically have an adult dragon, but they know it makes them more of a target if he gets involved. Yes, give them a reason not to use that bonus.
Oh, silent weapon. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, silent but deadly. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sentient weapons are fun.
Yes, they are.
I've had a sentient weapon.
It's good fun playing them as a GM too, I gotta say.
Yeah. I think a good sentient weapon is impacted by your character's story.
Yes, it should be
and
tied
your character's
to you.
personality.
Yeah,
as well. Like you shouldn't just give them there are certain sentient weapons in Dungeons and Dragons that exist.
Yeah.
Like Black Razor.
Yep.
Pretty sure that's a sentient weapon. And any of the Vecna stuff, and those are ones that they have a detailed personality because that's your big bad of the game.
Yes. Yeah.
And for the sword that I got, and in fact, now if you want me to go on this tangent about the subclass I'm making, I'll go on to it. But it was the weapon I got for my character that was sentient. It was a foil to my character, which was well done. It had to be sassy and funny, and I was serious and depressing.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and that's when it works, right? When there's a conflict. Conflicts are fun. They're also a great thing to build a character on. I built a character based on a Michael Moorcock fictional character who was the Eternal Champion. The short version of it is he is a lawful good character who has been tricked into a deal with a chaotic evil patron who he is forced to do their bidding through all of time and space. You can go all kinds of places with this stuff. But other questions? Anything else anybody want to talk about character arcs in specifically, or other stuff in general? We'll just sit here and chat for a while too. But
we can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we are charismatic individuals.
Somebody on Twitter said the other day, "What class are you in real life?" I typed Bard so fast my fingers almost broke. Yeah, that's not even a question.
Yeah.
Bard, no other life skills. Bang.
Cursed weapons. Yeah.
Yes, does fire damage instead. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then you call it the blue flame. Yes.
I would have you have one weapon that creates gaseous damage, that creates gas, and then the other one is called the matchstick.
But see, this is I'm going to try and tie this back in. We were talking about this earlier in a way, these creating NPCs to take over the game and how not to do it.
Sentient
And
weapons are something
as a GM, it's real easy to take a sentient weapon or a familiar and just use it to play. And I get that. It is so much fun playing a character. But my advice would be remember whose it is. While you're playing the sentient character, it's on that character's hands for a reason. Right? What is it for? What is it doing? It isn't about, we'll come back to my favorite line, it isn't about you, the GM. This game is about the players.
Yeah. It's always, I mean, really, the last thing I'm going to say about this before we talk about it next time. It's not your story. When you're a GM, it's not your story.
No, it isn't. Nope.
It's your
You did all the
story.
work. Yeah.
And you just have to roll with it.
Yeah. The way I keep putting it, this is one of my hobby horses. You're the plot. You're all the NPCs. You're the whole world. That should be enough. Be the background. Get in the bloody background. Right? I mean, be the world. You're the book.
You are the coloring book.
Yes.
You are the lines.
Yes.
And they can choose to draw over those lines.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of drawing over the lines, yes, chat, nearly taken over by a sort of greed. The only thing that stopped it was how much of a dick you were to it. Yeah, I've had character reactions like that too. The other way around too. I've seen in games sentient objects that were so obnoxious because it is the trope, right? Sentient objects are always obnoxious and rude. But I've seen one played by a GM that was so rude that the character stopped using it. They actually tried to get rid of it several times and couldn't because it turned out it was cursed because the GM was having too much fun playing it. But they just would never get used as a weapon. It was just this annoying thing that sat on their hip. Which
Wait a minute!
Completely defeats the purpose of having it, yeah. But yes, nothing. But it's a great example of nothing is written in stone. Your GM gives you something and you just go, yeah, no. It may not be great improv, but sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, even then, a lot of great improv when you're starting out, especially, you get like 5 seconds to plan.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, don't plan any more than that. You don't need to. Chaos was the fun part, absolutely. And being a storyteller, it took me a very long time to figure out that telling a good story with friends has been something that people have done since they sat around campfires because it's cool. But it's only cool if everybody does it together, which is why neither one of us typically uses the title GM for themselves. Nothing with the word master in it. I like story keeper because it's my job to keep the story. Editor, that's another great one. I love it. But yes, that's what it comes back to. We are doing something here that humans have done since they invented fire and language.
Oh, before fire.
But sit around in the dark and tell scary stories and all engage. And just like those situations, at least as I see them, I might be completely wrong. But that person, that chief storyteller, I like to think, like good storytellers today, went around the room or went around the fire and got input from every single person that was there. I like your idea better. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Don't even put your own name on the overlays. Yeah. Some of mine, I don't even have a box for myself. I put myself on the map where I belong.
So this is one of the best stories really ever, Lord of the Rings. And I think we can all agree it's one of the best stories.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a very hard sell. That was written, especially The Hobbit, was written by Tolkien telling his kids a bedtime story, and then the kids going, "Didn't you tell me the door was green instead of blue?" And he's, damn it.
Now I have to write it down.
And make a note.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that very much. I make the sets and turn on the lights, but the story is yours. I love
building
that.
A playground.
In fact, I might steal that. That's good too. I build the playground, and then I watch the kids to make sure they don't hurt themselves when they play on it. Unless they agree that I'm allowed to, in which case every once in a while I'll break one of their little legs. Oh. your troop did a playtest with White Wolf. Is that a game system? Because I know someone who uses that as part of their name. So
yeah, I'm
and it's not capitalized, so I was wondering, but it
yeah.
probably is. There are so many games
Is
out
White
there,
Wolf
man.
also the World of Darkness people?
I don't know.
also
Hopefully, we'll be
when you
informed
did-
momentarily. Was the the company that did VTM? I should know that too. Oh, good. Bison does.
Okay. Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf
Oh,
the
them. Okay,
Apocalypse,
gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All up to speed now. Thank you,
World of Darkness. Yeah.
Vampire dude. I don't know.
I
I saw
really
collectible
want to
card.
do-
I saw collectible card games and went no. I can see a money grab when I see one. So
Yeah. Like, I mean, I really want to do a World of Darkness game. There are certain aspects of it though that I don't want to run it. I fear it's more an I fear about what I would do wrong with it,
Yep.
because there are so many minds on a World of Darkness game.
Yes.
Like the entire mythology behind vampires, super non-consenting,
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. There's all kinds of issues with that stuff, but
and you have to make sure that you're not, unfortunately, triggering people's issues
yes. Yeah.
with that. So I want to do a game, but I don't think it should be a game that I can really stream.
Yeah. And again, we're going to touch on that when we do the show about the difference between a good game and a good streamed game.
Yeah.
But that's for another
Yeah, Werewolf
night.
has a lot of
Yeah, same thing. There's
I'm
a lot
just
of consent
counting
issues. Yeah.
World of Darkness, like,
And that's-
forcing someone into a monstrous role.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, that is a big deal right now. So let's talk about it for a minute. Also, this is because it came out on Twitter again today, and rightfully so. There was discussion about a game based in a slave-based economy. And while the purpose of the game, the goal of the game is to go in and kill the slavers and rescue the slaves, I, for one, said I'd rather play another game. But, to each their own. If you want to go for it. But I would rather not. It's that simple. I don't want that. It's nasty. To me, the problem is when you rescue them. What do I do as a GM when you take these slaves out of the pens? I have to now tell you what happened to them as they were slaves and who knows what else? No, I'm not interested. I'm not going there. So, it doesn't take a lot of stuff off the table. Yeah, sure. But it also forces you to be more creative. And I keep saying I'm creative enough to get around this. I'm creative enough to get around this. And so far I always have been. So
Yeah. I can fit into that, but there are also certain things that I know I'm creative enough to get around this, but I don't want to have to risk it.
exactly. Yeah. There's with the internet, things can blow. Your one bad moment is 1,000,000 times bigger than your 1,000 good moments. And that is always a risk. And it's the game we play.
Like, it's we live in a digital age, which is great for some things and bad for other things. It's one of those. I'm glad I was not a huge person on social media. I'm still not. Let's be honest.
You
I
have a
don't think I ever
presence.
will.
You
I
cannot
have a presence, which
deny
is
it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy, still crazy to me. But like, I didn't have social media until I was 13, and even then I went, I'm like kind of over this.
There
At that
wasn't
point-
social media till I was 30, but never mind.
Facebook had been around for a few years at that point, but it was one of those nice things, and I just kind of realized now I'm happy that I wasn't crazy enough to do a lot of, like, I did crazy stupid things, and I've done things that I've regretted. I don't like to say I made mistakes, because
No.
mistakes, I don't know, they have this kind of connotation of I did this by accident. No, I did this on purpose, and it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to.
Yes, you
Or
didn't.
it has now repercussions that I realized weren't good.
Yes.
But it's just, I don't. Where was I saying? What was I saying?
Repercussions.
Oh, social media. It's one of the lovely things on. I've done stupid things, but they haven't been posted online.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Face-to-face games before the internet, yeah, and all kinds of stupid shit got said in people's basements. But I do want to back up a couple steps here. Yes, it's like owning a science and learning center. You build the whole place, but if the kids grab the laser guns and run and play shoot around the pyramids, you bloody let them.
Yeah. Also, if they know how to use the pyramids as cover, and learn to just kind of like they're on the top of the pyramid, and then they hear someone's coming, they roll, and then they're on the other side, on another side of the pyramid.
Yes.
And they lean out.
Yes. And also from chat, yes, you can have an amazing story without having to include things which may make people uncomfortable. And also, yes, some narratives are not yours to tell. Yeah. That is a perfectly reasonable thing to say in 2021, and I love it, and I absolutely accept it as a limitation on everything that I do. Some of those stories are simply not mine.
It's one of those same reasons I don't play female characters, because I don't feel I could. I don't think I could do it justice. B, it's not my story.
Yep, I agree. I get that completely.
Being in a bad situation and being in rough situations, and like the reason I play Dark Bastards, that's kind of how I live my life.
Yeah.
And so
play what you know.
There's stories I feel I can tell without stepping on toes. Even when I did the Lucas has brain damage thing.
Yes.
I have brain damage.
Yeah, it's legit. It's within your wheelhouse. You're allowed.
Yeah.
Like
I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes that should be telling the story.
Yeah.
No.
What's on next here? Face-to-face games. Scott, again, man, you're amazing. Did one arc based around something uncomfortable. I vowed I'd never add it. I've done it once. I never need to do it again. I didn't enjoy it at all. Yes, there's a reason why we avoid uncomfortable things, because they make us uncomfortable. I did an offline game that ran actually for over a year. The basic premise was we were going to study an ism, and I'd created one that wasn't in the real world. Magicism. Basically, a short answer is if you were a magic user, you were a heretic, and you were being hunted down. It was so uncomfortable that I and the players left that behind very, very quickly and started the revolution that was going to be the long-term goal. Was making magic okay again, right? Overcoming this ism in a very traditional and non-realistic way, right? A bullshit, like I wrote it kind of way. What do I know? And what we turned it into was an inspirational story of just what it takes to stand up to authority and say no. And I think that was a much better story because of that. So there's that. And even the DM can hit the X button. Yes, we talk about the X button and other stuff. The DM can do that too. It's easy to talk yourself into a situation you don't want to be in. It's also easy for one of your players to drop a sentence. Because now that you mention it, who asks the DM what their limits are? I mean, I tell you mine, but in a session 0, where does it say in most people's session 0s, oh, by the way, the DM has these?
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
But it absolutely damn well should. And
most
yes,
of the time it just ends up being part
the
of
DM gets to do this too. For those of you that don't know, because we Zoom, there's an X card thing in it that you can get for real play, where you have it at the table and you lift it up and hold it up, and it means this scene stops immediately. This is a line I'm not willing to cross. Here we just do this. And yes, you're absolutely right. The DM has the right to do that too. Clear. Yes, they did cough because they were in that campaign. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's somebody
if
we know
uncomfortable about something.
Yeah,
really, especially as a GM.
Yep.
For something, or your own character. If you're uncomfortable with something, don't do it. If you're even minorly uncomfortable about it, as someone who writes and wants to do stories, like there are parts of things I want to make people uncomfortable,
Yes.
but that's not something I want to subject a person to live.
Yes.
Like I want, if I'm writing a book and I write a scene where someone is taken advantage of, that's as far as I'll say it. And good night, Scott. It's just one of those.
Yeah, it's quarter to
I
4
know
in the morning in England, so yeah.
Yeah. It's still one of those things. I need to touch it with reverence. I need to be careful with it, and I need to. And I think even when I write the thing, I'm going to write a little bit that says this is what's this
Trigger
thing is about to happen.
Yep, absolutely. Trigger warnings are important.
It is not. It ends on page this.
Yep.
Skip to this page if you don't want to read it.
Yep.
Because it's important to the story that it happens.
Yep.
But it's not important that you read it.
Exactly. And chat again. Yes, leave immediately if they won't change. Somebody we both know, and somebody with a lot of experience in all the connected fields, once said, "No one has the right to make you uncomfortable at a gaming table. No one. And if they do, and that's what they said. I mean, I'm going to expand on it a little bit. If they do, tell. Do not ask them to stop. Tell them to stop. And if they do not stop, leave."
This is something that I really wish I recognized and knew immediately. And
yes, as a GM, look up, watch your players. How's this going? Everybody okay? We need 5. We need to stop. We need to change the scene. Let me know. But sorry, I interrupted.
Oh no, that's fine. It's just because I said I went to my GM once, and I said I'm not okay with this thing that's happening.
Yep.
Essentially, I was told by my GM tough.
Yep.
And I should have left,
Mm-hmm.
but because it was a game that had an audience, I felt I couldn't just leave.
Yep. Well, there's all kinds of reasons.
I had an obligation to these people.
There's a whole bunch of reasons to stay in that situation, and none of them are good. Yeah, exactly.
No. I should have just left.
When it stops being fun, stop doing it. It's real simple. Find a better group. Find us. Come and play with us
every week, and I just waited for things to be done.
Yep. Yeah, and that's not fun. So we learned from that. We all learned from that, and we know better.
Well, we
now.
learned from that.
That's all I said. I used the we. Yeah, it's not up to me to make other people learn stuff. But
now,
anyway,
and if they ever do learn the things, we'll probably find out. But I don't think they've learned the things.
Anyway, I don't want to end on that. I want to end on.
We're not
going to
end on this. So a horse walks into a bar.
That's not positive. That's just distraction theory, and that doesn't work.
No, that's what I
wanted to end on the amazing positive that we have been in double digits all night. The two of us sitting here talking about something as boring as good old character arcs, and we've been sitting in double digits all night. Thank you all so much. Somebody stayed up until like 4 o'clock in the flipping morning British time to sit here and chat and have this conversation with us.
I don't think they've watched us and I don't think they had ever seen us come in and talk about this stuff.
No,
before.
I think they probably saw some of the social medias and popped in to give it a chance, and I appreciate that they did, and I love it. And because of that, what a night! Holy cow! Yeah, if it risks your comfort, to hell with it. Being a stream game, you had your limits. You had every right to leave. So there's somebody that knows. Anyway, let's step back to this show, because this episode was really impressive. We were worried it was going to come up way short, and it didn't. I mean, it's 7:47, so considering we basically didn't do an intro tonight, we're right on time. Perfect. So,
So Kevin and I will say our goodbyes and everything like that we do, and our thank yous. But first, I wanted to share a lovely recipe. This is a lovely recipe I learned for an omelet. You see, I added eggs, then oil, sugar, and some chocolate, and then I added some flour for texture. And I put it in the oven Well, I think you call it a cake, but no.
Wait. Was this in quite a deep pan? Candles on the top, icing.
Yes. No, that's sorry. Whenever I get uncomfortable, I like to make it with humor.
Yep.
So with that, and now for actual genuine heartfelt things. Thank you so much to everyone who decided to come in, those who have seen us before, the people that have not seen us before, the people that are going to see us later.
Yes.
On the other places of the interweb.
Yes, on the Tube of You in particular.
Yes, and
yes,
that's all I can really think of for the Tube of You.
Well, I will take over then. You finished it last week. I get to finish it this week.
Oh yeah. Oh, but I also want to first, before I finish, I just thank you myself because I'm amazing.
Yes, you are.
And thanks to, and of course, thank you, Kevin, for being awesome and fantastic. And definitely, yeah, no, that's about it. When you bring it to you'll bring it to a close this time, and the next time I feel like we should try to do it in unison.
I was thinking next time we'll get the visitors to do it, but either way,
that's
we'll spread this around anyway. For tonight.
Oh yes, I have a website, thespiritadventure.com.
And look at this; these people are so far ahead of us. They like us more than we do, I suspect. With that, the thank yous. Thank you very much, Scarred, for joining me tonight. I give you so little to work on these. It's like, here's a topic. I'll talk to you on Friday. And then we met up early tonight and had a nice chat, and there was zero discussion about what we were going to talk about. And it came out looking pretty professional, if I don't mind saying so. So thank you very much for coming in.
We are very professional people.
Hey, you know what? Improv is one thing, but improving a talk show format is completely different than improving at a PC. So thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, I 12 packs of the YouTube, the Tube of You, yes. It's more me than ever before. Am I looking more like me?
Am I a real boy now?
Oh, callbacks to an away team episode. So thank you. Thank everybody that's in chat and everybody that was in chat all night. I appreciate it so much. The idea that this helps and that this inspired conversation makes a big difference is very cool to know. And also, for the people in the future that are watching on YouTube, if you watched all the way to here, please hit the like button. You probably did. So thank you for that. Hit the subscribe if you want to know when I remember to put stuff up. Speaking of which, I wrote a schedule. It's on the wall right there. The title is Page of Guilt. It is a schedule for me to publish stuff on the correct dates. So we will be recording Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then publishing that same stuff on YouTube the following Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I will be sticking to that. I have to because there's a piece of paper on the wall. That sounds funny, but it worked last time I did it, and it stopped working when I took the old piece of paper down. So, one more thing then. We did all the thank yous.
I do need. I also have one more thing before.
Yes, please do.
The final end. It's just once again, today has been brought to us by deodorant. Make sure you're wearing. And this has been brought to you by the wonderful contributions of you. Really,
it has literally tonight been brought to the wonderful contributions by you. Thank you so much. I know they've gone to bed, but wow, holy cow, that was it was hard to focus with that going on. That was a lot of bits. Thank you very, very much for that. And with that, until next time, as always, please be nice to each other. Good night.